Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marla McGuinness, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. For Cabinet Outs, reminder, this is not a COVID briefing for anybody on the live stream. Take it away, Premier.
Nope, I'm good, folks. Ready for any questions you may have. Do you have any?
Situation at St. Avex, can you update us on the investigation? You said the other day that you wanted to see some people fined. Where are we on that?
Yeah, there's investigations ongoing. I mean, there's a lot of concern, certainly in the community. I think it's up to 59 cases. So that's a significant number in my mind. But for perspective on that, there was about 2,000 people in the community. We've done a lot of testing. There's a lot of testing happening. So public health is investigating, and certainly as my thoughts are clear on the need to find those that break the rules. So we'll see what the investigations bring, but certainly it's not acceptable to break the rules.
Any thoughts on how the university handled the situation?
I think the university, I mean, the investigation will go on, but it's, from my understanding is that the actual university sanctioned events followed the rules. But, that investigation will continue. It's part of the investigation. A lot of the concern stems from kind of some off-campus or unsanctioned events, and those are a big focus point. But 59 cases. The vast majority of those cases are people that were vaccinated. The vast majority of those cases are students. So the university is obviously looking at the exams, how exams will be conducted, and all these things. So there's a lot of moving parts, but what I would say is public health is taking it as serious as we would expect.
And what about concerns of that 2,000 people? Are a lot of family members and presumably people who traveled from great distances and then went back. Are there any concerns over that? Do we know anything about it?
Yeah, there's, so kind of the ask, I guess, is that people, particularly students, and which is where most of the identified cases are, kind of stay close to campus. But you're always concerned. You see an outbreak like this, it's always cause for concern and caution in the way we act. And I've heard from a lot of people who were family members that were there on the weekend who were kind of reaching out, have been tested a couple times, will continue to get tested, and are, everybody's kind of on eggshells. If you were around Antigonish on the weekend, there's a lot of anxiety for sure. But public health is, as I say, is investigating. We have testing units up there. We'll continue to test, and do everything we can to keep it contained.
So to your knowledge, there's been no cases linked where people have gone back to another community?
No, to my knowledge, there's been no community spread whatsoever, including in the immediate Antigonish area.
Premier, I'm hoping to ask Minister Maslin some particular questions about the infirmary expansion project after you're here, but I just want to ask you a couple general things about it. When you were in opposition, your party was very critical of the process and how close it was, the fact that the public wasn't allowed to see the tender documents that were shared with the two consortia. Now that you're in government, do you still feel that way?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is from any seat I've occupied in the legislature, I've always been concerned, about how we invest in infrastructure, particularly around healthcare. So we all know the needs. If you've been to a hospital, you know that we have to invest in healthcare infrastructure in this province. We have to do it wisely. So this is a major project, and my kind of at the highest level, my ask, I guess, my insistence is that when we invest in healthcare infrastructure, we're investing for tomorrow, for the future. We're investing looking forward, not building something that was for yesterday. So on this particular project, obviously we're seeing our population grow. We know that as a province we have ambitious population growth goals, so we should be building healthcare infrastructure with that in mind. So that's kind of the lens that I'm looking through it for. Make sure we're building something that meets the needs of Nova Scotians.
Is that what's happening?
We're actually, that analysis is taking place right now. I have a lot of questions about it, so we'll, it never hurts to double check, triple check, through that process. That's kind of what's happening right now.
Is that analysis going to be done
quickly enough so that it doesn't interfere with the timeline of the project? Obviously, there's construction happening there now, so you presumably don't have a lot of wiggle room to make changes if that's what you want to do.
Well, we have to get it right. So we know that there's a lot of time pressures, and we're acting accordingly. But we have to get it right.
So back to the transparency question I began with. Public still hasn't seen what was tendered. We only know some sort of basic statements that have been made about the project, but we don't know specifically what the proponents have been asked to look at. So when you're talking about the size of the project, we don't really know what that is. Should those documents be open to the public? In opposition, we thought they should be.
Yeah, I think as we first thing I'd want to do is to have for the new government to work through its stakeholders and get its own understanding of where we think things should go. But certainly Nova Scotians should be involved in that process at the appropriate time. But right now we're trying to figure out what's in front of us, and that's what's happening right now.
100 Afghan refugees arrived last night, and you tweeted about it. Can you tell us what provincial supports are being provided for these individuals? Where might they be staying right now? And
yeah, so we're really excited about their arrival. I mean, these are people who had standing in their communities, so they're vulnerable people for a lot of reasons, but they're people who have, for the most part, been helpful to the Canadian military and helpful to Canadians. So we're really excited about their arrival here. In terms of the supports, most of the financial support is from the through the federal government through that program. ISANS is, of course, working very, very closely with them, though.
Premier, just go back to Antigonish for a second. Has there been any thought yet regarding whether there needs to be a travel advisory related to Antigonish in terms of people coming and going from that area?
Yeah, there's been lots of discussion with public health at this stage, and you know, a lot of the steps that have been taken have given confidence to public health, so it's not been deemed necessary for that at this stage.
Premier, can you talk about the decision to appeal the people with disability rights decision? You had said you had even apologized to the three named, and I gather you're saying the larger issue of discrimination there is there. What separates those three from the other 1,000 people that?
Yeah, what I would say is the appeal has been filed, and there was two parts to that decision for sure. There was obviously the three families, and then the larger ruling on the systemic part. So look, when we looked at what the courts said on the systemic part, we determined that there's some clarity that's necessary there, but. What I would say in general is we're moving forward to make sure that we improve those things that need to be improved and can be improved, and closing institutions and all that stuff. We're moving forward as a government on all of those issues. The fact that I don't want anyone to interpret the fact that an appeal has been filed that we're not moving forward, that it's just status quo. That's not the case. The appeal was deemed necessary from a legal perspective, really, for a lot of reasons on ramifications on that. But from the government side, we're moving forward on a number of initiatives.
I guess I would want to know what those ramifications are. What is it about saying that there's systemic discrimination that upsets you?
Well, what I said before at the time too was I always believed that people acted they did the best they could with what they had. So. If, as an example, I mean, you can have the best intentions, but if something is just not possible, so we know, as an example, housing's part of it. It's not the only part of it, but I'll talk about housing for a second. Housing, we have a housing crisis in the province, so it's not. It's oftentimes you just can't, even with the best intentions, find immediate housing for somebody across any number of situations. Sometimes that's just not possible. That doesn't mean it's not your intention to do it and that you want to do it and you take every action you can do it. So those are the types of things that we just need to make sure that as a government we're acting with compassion. And we're acting to the best that we can and with the best intentions, of course, but sometimes there's practical limitations as well. So we just want some clarity from the courts on that. But that said, we're still moving forward with a lot of initiatives.
So did you speak out of turn initially when you reacted to that? Was it a case of you spoke first and then people came to you and said, wait a minute, Premier, you need to know about this first?
No,
In other words,
I wouldn't
you
say
didn't know
I
the
wouldn't
legal
say that.
ramifications before you said something?
I would say, I would say my gut reaction was that we need to do better as a province, and we should just get to work and do that. That's still my gut reaction. That's still my intention. But at the same time, we're the government. We have to govern. And when the courts make a ruling, doesn't mean that we don't want to do what they say, but it means we have to understand what's possible from the government. So we'll continue to do everything that's possible, but we have to make sure that we have clarity on what the courts think is possible.
I'm still trying to understand what you're looking for in terms of clarity from the courts. So what is it you're looking for from them, and why do you have to get it from them?
A lot of it, well, because the courts made their decision. So a lot of it, honestly, a lot of these things, a lot of these issues come down to timing, and really what does immediate mean. That's kind of, in layman's terms, that's kind of what I've been focused on as Premier.
So we're to the phone lines now. We've got 2 people registered on the phones for questions, so we'll start with Jean Laroche, CBC News. Go ahead, Jean.
Hi there. Sorry. Let me mute. I'm trying to deal with 3 devices here. Premier, when you say the St. FX parties, there were some obviously on campus. You had said very clearly this week you would find and fine those who didn't follow the rules. Who does that apply to? Are you talking the people who organized? Are you talking for the people who participated? Who?
Anyone who needs to be found and fined. Any and all of those things. There's an investigation by public health, so it's everyone. Everyone should know at this stage what their responsibilities are to keep their friends and neighbors safe. And if anyone ignored that, then the investigation, it's my hope, will find them and find them.
Jean, do you have a follow-up question?
Strangely, I do. When you talked this week with Dr. Strang, and he came up with the anecdote about somebody trying to sell his friends a vaccine proof, you had said that both you and Dr. Strang had said you were going to go out and change the order. Have you done that so that people who sell or use fake vaccines are somewhat more liable?
Yeah, the order will be changed. I just don't have the answer as to whether it's been done right now, but it's certainly, we want the order changed.
Okay, we'll go to Jonathan McGuinness with CTV. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I think I asked this question.
Okay, perfect. We'll go back to the room for another couple minutes. Anybody else?
Premier, I think it was last week I asked you a question during a COVID news conference about judges and their vaccine status. After that, the different courts put out different statements about the status of their judges. Did you get to see what those courts said?
Yeah, there was a lot of movement after that exchange here. So my understanding is that every judge who's on the provincial payroll is vaccinated.
So one of the courts had used terminology that sounded like there was one or more people perhaps on leave that weren't vaccinated. Is that your understanding?
Are you referring to the Supreme Court? Yeah, and then those. So I don't know, and I didn't. I mean, I've been focused on the ones who are on our payroll, and they're all vaccinated.
Right. You're not aware of anybody on a leave of absence in the provincial court who,
Because of COVID.
for any reason, who's not
Yeah,
vaccinated?
well, I guess what I'd say is if you're talking about maybe somebody on long-term disability or something like that.
They're not
I mean,
telling us the
like,
details.
there's nobody. The judicial system has not been impacted because a judge is not vaccinated. If there's somebody who's just not been at work or is off on a leave, I'll have to double check that specifically. But my understanding is that every judge, regardless of their status, actively on the bench, on leave, whatever, that every judge on the provincial payroll is fully vaccinated. That's my understanding, but I'll definitely double check that.
And at the Supreme level, are from your understanding, are there any judges, Supreme or Court of Appeal, are there any judges who have appeared in court without vaccine?
it's my understanding that there has not been any judges who appeared in court who are not vaccinated. That's my understanding.
Will you extend that to, does provincial payroll include judges on the family court?
Yes, I will double check all those things, but my ask was, are any judges who are on the provincial payroll unvaccinated? And the answer was no. But we can double check that for sure.
So are you satisfied with all that? Are you satisfied where things stand right now with the judges?
Yeah, look, the only thing, we talk about vaccine mandates, and I think in general the vaccine mandate I would say was a success. We had a high percentage of those under the mandate who were vaccinated. The only thing I'm concerned about on vaccine mandates right now is that the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation decided to change theirs to January. I'm very upset about that. But for everyone who was under the mandate that we put forward, I'm happy with how things unfolded.
Have you been able to get an explanation from the Liquor Corp about why they did that?
I've not got an acceptable explanation. I've received some of their rationale, but to me it's completely unacceptable that they decided to have a different date than the rest of the province.
Why do you think they did it?
I can't speculate, but I'm not happy about it.
Are you saying that they
give you?
They gave some justifications around the timeline and the deadline, but I don't want to. I don't want to talk about their justifications because to me they're not acceptable.
Do you have, appreciating, I guess, that they're a Crown Corp, so they're sort of arm's length, but do you or Minister McMaster have any levers that you can pull when it comes to that issue, or are they autonomous enough that they can do what they want on that?
I don't think there are any levers we can pull just because of where we're at now, kind of heading towards the middle of December, and with the timing and with the labor relations and stuff. I don't believe there are any levers we can pull. How we got here is a whole nother discussion that will be reviewed because I think most people in Nova Scotia understood that Dr. Strang and myself very serious about people getting vaccinated, and in this province we have people off on leave now in important jobs, important roles in the healthcare system in particular, because of the vaccination status, and there's no reason why a Crown Corp would have a different date.
You said they changed the date. Did they initially have a different date and then they pushed it forward, or was their initial date
I'm not
later?
sure on that. If I use the word change, I might have used it. I might have used it. What I'm talking about is having a different date than the rest of the province, and I'm not sure why they. There's no real reason. There's no good reason why they did, to my mind.
Premier, any update on Alice Head?
No update in the sense of obviously we've been able to get out of the agreement that the prior government had committed the taxpayers to, and we were able to get the taxpayers out of that agreement without any financial or otherwise pain, which is a good thing for the taxpayers of the province. I've stated that it's my desire that it be protected, and we're still working through that process. So I don't have any update on that.
Am I correct in that all it takes is an order in council to give it that protection?
You might be, but there's never anything that's as simple as all it takes is an order in council, because there's a lot of steps before an order gets to council.
New Brunswick is saying that people can get their boosters sooner than 6 months for people 50 and up. Is that something that we might see here?
We might, but Dr. Strang is shared some information, but I know they're working on a plan, looking at supply, looking at logistics, and just looking at. I think what I would say is during the first round of vaccinations, obviously pharmacists and many others did a lot of heavy lifting. I know that the pharmacists, in particular, if I speak to them, they're doing everything they can right now, but they're doing flu shots, they're doing boosters, they're doing 5 to 11-year-olds. So we're putting a lot of pressure on them. So I want to thank them for everything they're doing, for sure, and all of those who are participating in the effort. But I mean, as supply is available and as we can logistically make it happen, I know it's Dr. Strang's wish that we do things quicker.
There was one question someone wanted to ask about the UARB. I just want to make sure we get there.
Yeah,
So-
that was me. Sorry, I was
Delayed by the snow. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, the renewable energy targets from Muskrat Falls obviously are not being fulfilled, and yet there's a hearing before the UARB saying that ratepayers should pay. Nova Scotia Power wants ratepayers to pay for the upfront cost of that before that power is delivered. I understand you can't influence the decision of the UARB, but do you have any comments about that?
I have lots of comments about that, but certainly, yeah, the UARB will adjudicate it and they'll make their decision. But as Premier of the province, you know, my obligation is to the ratepayers of this province and to take the steps that we can at every time to protect the ratepayers. And it's been I've had a lot of emotions, let's say, over what I've been seeing about you know, trying to charge the ratepayers of this province for executive bonuses and some charitable donations, particularly at a time when there's such a little percentage of energy flowing through there. So I think it's I would say I think it's I guess I'd use the word unreasonable what's being asked, but the UARB will make their own determination of that.
Related to that, ratepayers are now paying $10 million a year to the mayor to burn biomass at Brooklyn. And my understanding is that's a government direction to do that. Is that consistent with what you just said? I mean, plenty of people, energy auditors have said we don't need that energy through that process. It's not necessarily environmentally green energy, et cetera.
Yeah, a couple things I'd say about that is I do believe that Nova Scotia has been a leader in fighting climate change in lots of ways, and there is biomass being burnt there. That's a fact. It's forestry byproducts, not whole trees, which, you know, means something to a lot of people, means something to me. But I mean, when you look at the energy going on the grid, I mean, what's been happening there has been deemed necessary. We know that we'll have to take steps in the Muskrat Falls when that starts to flow, and we'll green our grid even more. But the burning of the forestry byproducts in that instance, it has been deemed necessary.
Okay, we will go to the phone. Jean Laroche has 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Jean.
Thanks, Marla. Premier, you met recently with the Black Family group. What do you think of the group's 5 recommendations?
I did meet with the group, and I had what I would call was Minister Dunn and myself, and we had what I would call was a productive meeting with them. We have committed to, we discussed a number of items during that meeting. We've committed to responding to them in writing following the meeting, and I think in fairness to them, out of respect for the nature of the meeting, I think I'd do that first before I get into comments. But I would say it was a productive meeting.
Go ahead, Jean, with your second question.
Yep. They did ask for 5 specific recommendations, and they have posted those online. I just wondered, you know, things like creating a separate department, naming an African Nova Scotian minister, establishing an advisory council, and then putting Dr. Monroe in the DM position. All of those things really stem from your power as Premier to do or not to do, and I just wondered what you thought of being asked to do those things directly as Premier.
What I would say is we agreed on the need to improve and do everything we can to make sure that appropriate supports are available to the community and available for the community. And they put forward some of their ideas on how that might be possible. We put forward some of our own, and but the common denominator was we agree on the need to focus on supports that are for the community, and that's what we'll do together.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Premier.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.